Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to cover up her body when strangers enter the home? I am fully aware the title sounds sexist, but hear me out, please. My girlfriend comes from a very wealthy background and grew up with maids, chefs, chauffeurs, etc. I was raised in a completely opposite environment and still adjusting to dating someone like her. When we're not with her parents, we spend a lot of time at one of her apartments. Here's the issue. My girlfriend likes to walk around home barely wearing anything, which is fine, but she even does this with the help around. For example, last month her family hired a new driver for her. He stopped by the apartment to introduce himself. She was only wearing underwear. Keep in mind, this is the first time they've met in person. I felt awkward. He was visibly awkward, and she didn't care at all. She was casually chatting to him while scrolling away on her phone. She does this all the time. She doesn't think she needs to wear any decent amount of clothes at all when people that work for her are around. She will casually walk around just wearing a thong or a tiny crop top, just a crop top, nothing else. She even does this with complete strangers. One time she opened the door for a delivery guy and was only wearing a see-through gown. You could see everything. Afterwards, I talked to her about it and she was utterly confused as to why I felt uncomfortable. Then she laughed and told me to stop being a jealous baby. She even said that I'm being unreasonable. We had another discussion about this yesterday and I told her that she probably wouldn't feel comfortable if I did the same. She said that she doesn't understand why I care what her staff think, and then it never even crossed her mind that this is inappropriate. She told me that she only does this in the comfort of her home and not in front of, quote, actual people, i.e. people that don't work for her. She got kind of mad at me and vented to her friends. According to all of them, I'm weird for having a problem with this, and I'm a jerk for telling my girlfriend to cover up. Somehow, I'm the villain of this story. Am I really the jerk? First off, by far the weirdest red flag in this entire situation is the fact that she says that she does this in the comfort of her home and not in front of actual people. Maybe that's not what she meant by that, but that is a very strange term to use for people. Actual people, people that do live. She means that, I guess, to say that since they work for her, they're not people that she has to have social relationships with, so she doesn't care about it. But I think that if the guy feels uncomfortable with it, he should feel okay with telling her that he feels uncomfortable with it and talking through it, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense, in the same way that she should feel comfortable talking about stuff that would make her feel like this if that ever happened. I mean, I just can't really get over the fact that she seems to think that people that work for her, people in service, are not real people, or at least not real enough to acknowledge. Again, that might be reading into the way that he interprets it, but still, it's hard to imagine how else she could have meant that. If anything, it sounds like some sort of superiority complex where she feels that people that don't have very much money are lesser than her who has money, but it's just so normalized that she doesn't even see how that's weird. And that's probably because she's surrounding herself with other people that are also extremely wealthy and have this sort of mindset, because all of her friends seem to think that the boyfriend is being really weird in the situation, and maybe that's because they don't see the help as actual people as well. But let me know what you guys would do if you're in this situation, or if you have ever been in a situation, let me know what happened. Jerk or not a jerk? Am I the jerk for turning the oven off while cooking Thanksgiving dinner after my husband kept shouting orders at me? I'm a 33-year-old female with a work-from-home job, and I've been married to my husband, a 37-year-old male who works in the military, for a year. We had a long-distance relationship, and I'd met his family a handful of times. I wasn't allowed to take part in Thanksgiving dinner preparation until I was officially married into the family. This year, my husband invited his family to spend Thanksgiving with us. I was happy to cook Thanksgiving turkey for the family, but the thing is, whenever we're having guests over and I'm the one cooking, my husband pops into the kitchen every few minutes and literally shouts stuff like, "So how we doing? The chicken's not ready yet. Hurry up, let's go." And "That shrimp ain't gonna cook itself." And "Let's go, let's go. Come on, the guests are starving." And "You move too slow, move faster." And "Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go." Like I was in the military or one of his recruits. He has a frog voice from constantly yelling. Him constantly pressuring me like that caused me so many injuries because I crack under pressure and I get really stressed, resulting in having accidents. Thanksgiving Day, while I was cooking dinner, he did the same thing. He kept coming into the kitchen and saying, "Folks are getting hungry. What's taking you so long?" Then full on went to shouting, "Come on, let's go. And hurry up, let's go, move. I was like mad at this point, and his family was dumbfounded. His mom offered to help, but I said thanks and warned him to stop or I will stop cooking. And he doubled down with an expected 4 more minutes. Let's go. I stop, turn off the oven and tell him I was done. No more cooking. He starts arguing with me saying I can't stop mid-task, but I apologize to the family and tell his mom she was welcome to finish the turkey, but he didn't allow her to and told them he was taking them out to spite me after what I did. I was shocked. I didn't expect this. They literally got in their cars and left. He got home by 11 p.m. and said what I did by turning off the oven and refusing to serve his family who were guests was tasteless and irresponsible. I said he was putting me under pressure and I couldn't take it, but he still said this was on me since he's used to the military routine and I'm acting like I'm surprised how he tends to get things mixed up between work and home. It's been days and he keeps cold shouldering me for ruining our first Thanksgiving with his family despite saying, quote, I'm not angry, I got better things to do. His family is pissed. Am I the jerk? Alright, one thing right away nobody seems to be mentioning is the fact that they didn't let her participate in cooking Thanksgiving dinner until she was married into the family. I mean, maybe that's normal for some families, but that seems kind of strange to begin with, a little bit exclusive, which kind of fits in line with the whole, oh, there's an argument, let's all just leave her alone on Thanksgiving, get in the car and go eat somewhere. That seems like one of the worst things you could do, because there's a difference if you're trying to diffuse a situation between two people, but when you have to pull apart your entire family and you leave the other person behind at home alone with no food that's ready to eat, that seems pretty messed up. And there's also a lot of people that are in the military that can definitely separate their military work from their home life. So the guy's excuse is that he can't possibly separate military life from home life, so that's why he's got to come in the kitchen and keep barking out these orders. Was turning off the oven the right choice here? Probably not, because I think if anything that made things a lot worse rather than trying to address the actual issue. But I mean, if she had her breaking point, she had her breaking point. Let me know what you would do if you're in this situation, and let me know jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my son have 2 last names? So a bit of context, I'm a 32-year-old male and I've been with my wife, a 30-year-old female, for 3 years. She comes from a country where women get to keep their maiden name after marriage, which was fine with me, though as someone who comes from the South, my family pushed for my wife to take my last name, but she ended up keeping hers, which made my family somewhat unhappy, saying it was disrespectful of her to keep her maiden name. But thankfully, they got over it and things got better and we reconciled later. Now, this last name issue has been brought up again when my wife and I found out we were expecting a baby boy. I sat my wife down and told her that my son is going to get my last name and explained that so there's no confusion, but she disagreed and said no and came up with a compromise, which was that our son gets both of our last names. But I declined, explaining how awkward and confusing and just complicated that would be. Not to mention the middle name, so that would be a long name, but she said I should consider since my last name will still be there, but I said no and told her we'll just have to go with what most families here do, and that is by going with the father's last name. She threw a fit, calling me selfish and accused me of treating her as if she, as a mother, gets less or no say, but I reminded her that she got to keep her maiden name, so we're even. She then argued that I was mixing two things that are unrelated and was holding the fact that she got to keep her maiden name over her head, though it was her right to do that, the same with deciding what surname our son will have. I said I was sorry, but I cannot accept this compromise, especially with how my family will react, and told her she should just go with the flow and agree on my son having my last name. She got upset and refused to talk to me after that, calling me selfish and a dictator and a minion for my family, even though I'm just looking out for our son's best interest and keeping them in mind. I think she's deliberately being stubborn here, but I'm not sure. Am I the jerk? From the sounds of it, it sounds like he's kind of going my way or the highway. He's not really open to any discussion about this at all. And rather than trying to explain that or come somewhere in between to have her understand why it's important to him or anywhere in between, he's basically just saying, my family will shame me. I'll look like a fool. It has to be this way. way, that's the end. You already got what you wanted by keeping your name. This is how it's going to be here. This would probably be a lot more effective if he explained beyond what his family thinks, why is it important to him, and is there any way at all that they could come to some sort of compromise, since he obviously hates the fact that his son would have a very long 4-word name. Pretty much all the people that responded to this said that he is the jerk, and a lot of the reasons people seem to think this is the specific line where he said that I sat down with my wife and told her my son is going to get my last name, because to a lot of people the decision has to be mutual, and as somebody in the response put it, they said that it seems unilateral and doesn't reflect your mutual wants and needs. It reads as if you've decided for both of you. You said a fact and she has to comply. You think you can veto her because you're a man. She didn't have to change her surname to yours, and it doesn't mean that she has to name her kids after you. You didn't do her any favors by allowing her to keep her last name. She would have done that regardless of your objection, thoughts on the matter, and even spite of them. It sounds surreal at this point. Your wife sounds agitated, and you have to think if this is a hill you want to die on. It's more than a simple dissent. It can lead to a major argument if not addressed properly. And then going back to the part where he actually said that she threw a fit calling me selfish and accusing me of treating her as if she, as a mother, gets less or no say, but I reminded her that she got to keep her maiden name and so we're even. The point concludes by saying it speaks for itself at this point. Someone disagreeing with you doesn't mean that they can throw a fit. You're victimizing yourself. You're the calm and logical side of this equation, and she's unreasonable, crude, and overstepping boundaries. I mean, really, there's no easy solution here. This is absolutely something that in the most ideal situation you would want to have figured out long before you have a kid, long before you get married, but obviously everything doesn't tend to work out perfectly. But let me know what you would do if you were in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for saying it's my grandparents' fault I don't embrace my culture? I'm a 16-year-old female. I'm half Korean and half German. However, I am white passing. I don't look Asian at all. I look 100% Caucasian. My mom was an addict. She and dad had a divorce when I was 2 years old. My mom left for Germany and left me with my dad. I am my family's greatest shame. My father is the firstborn son, so his marriage to my mom was his rebellious stage, and while he could pretend he never married her, he couldn't pretend that I don't exist. I am a reminder of his failure. He quickly married a nice Korean woman, and they had my siblings, a 12-year-old female, 12-year-old male, 9-year-old male, 7-year-old male. Growing up, we lived with my grandparents. They blamed all my bad behavior on my white side. I always heard things like, we can't expect the white kid to behave, rude, just like Westerners, etc. If my siblings did something bad, I was blamed, as I was, quote, influencing them with my Western values and, quote, leading the nice Koreans astray. When Chuseok happened, the Korean holiday, I was never allowed to participate and was told to stay inside of my room. For most of my life, I tried to be as Korean as possible. I dyed my natural blonde hair brown, wore brown contact lenses that cover my blue eyes, etc. It didn't help that we lived in the rural area of South Korea and I was the only white kid for miles. The bullying was relentless. My dad did nothing to help me. One time he tried to stand up for me. My grandparents said this to him: "This child is your fault. If you had married a nice girl, we wouldn't be dealing with this," while they pointed at me. This was the first and last time he tried to stand up for me. When I was 15 years old, my mom came to get me. She had gone her life together and was clean. They couldn't hand me to her fast enough. The good thing is, I love my life in Germany. I love the culture and the people. I feel more at home in Germany than I ever did in Korea. I finally embraced my German side and stopped trying to be Korean. Recently, my 12-year-old female sister died. I can't say that I'm sad about it, as all my siblings participated in my mistreatment, so I never had a bond with them. Since she was the only girl and my stepmom can't have any more kids, my grandparents and dad have been trying to reach out to me. They convinced my mom to send me there to visit for the holidays. When I arrived, they were shocked to see me with blonde hair, blue eyes, piercings, etc. I also refused to speak Korean, speaking only English or German. This morning, my grandparents said how sad they are to see me turn my back on my culture. I exploded at them, cussing them out. I told them if they hadn't bullied me my whole life, maybe I would be closer to my Korean culture. I said they don't get a do-over because my sister died. I said a lot of nasty things to my dad as well. My grandparents started crying, and my dad had tears in his eyes, which shocked me because I've never seen him so sad. I feel kind of bad. Am I the jerk? Oh my God, this is actually sad. She's been bullied to the point that she doesn't even feel anything when her own sister died. And from the way she tells everything that went down, you can understand why to a degree. I mean, her sister that passed away, even though she was younger, was part of this incessant bullying that almost sounds dehumanizing in a way. When they have that Korean holiday, they locked her in her room so she couldn't celebrate it. And then later on, the grandparents are saying, how could you turn your back on the Korean culture? You locked me in my room during the Korean holiday. Obviously, there's more than one holiday, but this one must have been important because she mentioned it directly by name here. It honestly sounds like the grandparents here are disgusted or really just put off by white people and white culture, so much so to the point that they're thinking that just by her being white, regardless of the culture, just in her DNA, her being white is enough to ruin the influence of her siblings by influencing them with Western values, which how could she even have what they would consider Western values if she grew up with her dad in the rural area of South Korea? It doesn't even make sense. It's just a very closed-minded way of thinking. The one thing I can be happy about is that she did get to go to Germany. Her mom did become clean, and she is now finally embracing her German side. It sounds like that is probably the most healthy outcome from all of this nonsense up to this point. And even the cathartic explosion at the end of all of it, her unloading on her grandparents, dropping the truth bomb, a little dose of reality, so that her grandparents have to feel it and her dad have to feel it during maybe the only time they would be this receptive, because unfortunately the sister passed away. This is all a very heavy situation, and I hope the best for her, but let me know what you would do if you were in this situation, and do you think she's a jerk or not?